Welcome to Hard Script.
The moment that stuck with me didn't feel dramatic at the time. It felt small, casual, the kind of thing people laugh off and keep eating their food. It happened in the lobby during the building's summer mixer. Cheap wine on a folding table, string lights taped to the ceiling, neighbors pretending they remembered each other's names. I had just finished an early shift driving the streetcar and still smelled faintly like metal and brake dust. Emily stood near the elevator with a plastic cup in her hand, laughing in that bright way she used for strangers. He was standing next to her. New guy from the floor below. Ryan. Freelance designer. Worked from home. Everyone already knew that part. I walked over just in time to hear him say something about flexible schedules and how he sometimes forgot what day it was. Emily laughed again, louder this time, and nudged his arm like they had shared 10 years of inside jokes. Someone asked how long we'd been married. Emily answered before I could. She said we'd been together long enough that we didn't really do date nights anymore. She said it with a smile that made everyone else smile too. Then she added that I had a schedule that ran on rails, and she ran on caffeine and chaos. Ryan said that sounded exhausting. Emily shrugged and lifted her drink. She said she was always drained by the end of the day anyway. She said nights usually meant pajamas and silence. He joked that weekends were for people who still had energy. She laughed again and said maybe this weekend. I stood there long enough for the silence to land, just long enough to notice Ryan didn't look at me once. He only watched her. When the elevator opened, Emily stepped in beside him. She didn't even turn around to check if I was coming. I took the stairs. That night she told me she was tired. She said it the same way she always did. Soft voice. Quick kiss on the cheek. Lights off early. I said no problem. The weekend never came. The first time I noticed the pattern, it was quiet enough to ignore. Emily started coming home later from the salon, saying walk-ins had stacked up or one of the stylists had called out. She would drop her purse on the kitchen counter, kick off her shoes, and lean against the sink like the day had wrung her dry. I would already be home from the line, showered, dinner warming in the oven. My mornings started before sunrise, so evenings had always been ours. Or at least they used to be. She kept saying she was drained. She said maybe this weekend. She said it like a promise she believed. The first small shift came in the elevator. I ran into Ryan one morning while heading out for an early shift. He had on sweats and headphones around his neck, coffee in hand, like the day was optional. I nodded. He hesitated before nodding back. His smile felt delayed, like he had to think about it. That same evening, Emily mentioned running into him downstairs. She said he worked from home and barely saw anyone. She said he seemed lonely. She said she felt bad for him. A few nights later, she said she was taking the trash out. It was something she never volunteered for. I watched her grab her phone before she grabbed the bag. From the balcony, I could see the parking lot and the building entrance. I told myself I was just getting air. I told myself it meant nothing. She stayed downstairs longer than it takes to drop a bag in a dumpster. When she came back up, her cheeks were flushed. She said the humidity was brutal. She headed straight to the shower. The water ran longer than usual. Steam rolled under the bathroom door while my dinner sat untouched on the table. The next morning, Ryan didn't meet my eyes in the elevator at all. That was the first moment I stopped asking about her day. The pattern turned into rhythm. Emily's shower started happening later in the evening, long after she had already said she was too tired for anything else. The bathroom fan would hum while I sat on the couch with the television on low, watching light flicker across a room that felt less and less like ours. When she came out, she smelled like the expensive body wash she used on special occasions. She would climb into bed without touching me and scroll through her phone with the brightness turned down. I never reached for it. I never asked who was texting. One afternoon, I came home earlier than usual because a shift got swapped. The hallway outside our apartment was quiet. As I stepped out of the stairwell, I saw Emily standing by the elevator. Ryan stood too close for a casual conversation. She was laughing at something on his phone. His hand rested against the wall near her shoulder, not touching, but claiming space. They didn't see me at first. When they finally noticed, Ryan straightened like he had been caught skipping class. Emily's smile shifted, just slightly, before she walked toward me and said they had been talking about a new cafe down the street. She said he worked from home and needed excuses to get outside. That evening she mentioned grabbing coffee with him sometime. She said it like it was community service. The next few weeks, the building seemed smaller. I would hear footsteps in the hallway after dark. The elevator would stop on our floor and then continue down. Her phone would light up while she was taking out the trash or checking the mail. One night, I stepped onto the balcony again. I saw two silhouettes near the entrance. Hers was easy to recognize. The way she tilted her head back when she laughed had not changed in years. They didn't kiss. Not that I could see, but they did not stand like neighbors. I went back inside and turned off the lights. The next morning, I stopped reaching for her in my sleep. The first time she went downstairs after I had already said goodnight, I did not follow. She stood by the bed, phone in hand, and said she could not sleep. She said she needed air. She moved carefully, like someone trying not to wake a stranger instead of a husband. The door closed softly behind her. I stayed in bed and listened. In our building, the elevator makes a low mechanical sigh when it starts moving. I heard it. I counted the seconds in my head without meaning to. The sound faded downward. I did not get up. I did not look over the balcony. I lay there staring at the ceiling, feeling the mattress cool beside me. She came back smelling like night air and something sweeter, something unfamiliar. She slipped into bed without touching me. The space between us felt measured. After that, it became routine. Some evenings, she said she was drained and went to bed early. Then, after I had turned off my lamp, the bathroom light would flick on. Water would run. Drawers would open and close softly. The elevator would sigh again. I stopped asking where she was going. I stopped saying goodnight. Instead, I started adjusting my own rhythm. I picked up extra shifts at the depot when they were offered. I lingered in the break room with the other operators, drinking burnt coffee and listening to stories about routes and traffic. I began looking at listings on my phone during lunch, small apartments near the rail yard. One afternoon, as I walked into the building, I saw Ryan coming out of the stairwell that led from the lower floors. He slowed when he saw me. For a second, it looked like he might say something. He didn't. He stepped aside and let me pass, eyes fixed on the floor. That night, Emily did not go downstairs. She stayed in bed and scrolled her phone in silence. The next evening, she did. The night I knew for sure, I was not looking for proof. I had come home from a long shift, hands still humming from the rails, and the apartment was quiet. Emily's shoes were by the door. Her purse was on the counter. The bedroom was empty. The bathroom light was off. I stepped onto the balcony without turning on any lights. The air was cool, the kind that carries sound. Down near the entrance, the security light cast a pale circle across the pavement. I saw her walk in from the side of the building, not from the street. She was fixing her hair with one hand, phone in the other. A second later, Ryan came out of the stairwell door that led from the lower floors. He did not walk beside her. He waited until she was almost at the main entrance before moving. They did not need to touch for it to be clear. She came upstairs first. The elevator sighed. I stepped back inside before it reached our floor. When she walked through the door, she looked surprised to see me awake. She said she had gone to clear her head. She said she could not sleep again. I nodded and told her that was fine. The next morning, I changed my direct deposit information at the depot during lunch. I started transferring a portion of my paycheck into a separate account. I did not hide it. I just stopped mentioning money. That week, I signed a lease for a small place near the rail yard. Nothing special, just clean walls and quiet neighbors. I told the landlord I worked early mornings and would not be a problem. Back home, Emily kept saying maybe this weekend. She started noticing that I no longer reached for her hand when we walked through the lobby. She noticed I stopped waiting for her to finish work so we could drive somewhere together. She noticed I ate dinner without asking if she wanted some. One evening, she looked at me across the kitchen and asked if something was wrong. I told her everything was exactly how she wanted it. The first person who reacted was not Emily. It was Ryan. In the elevator one evening, he finally tried to speak. He asked how work was going at the transit line. He said he had always admired people with discipline. His tone was careful, almost polite. I told him it ran on schedule. I said rails did not bend for anyone. He forced a smile that did not reach his eyes. When the doors opened on his floor, he stepped out quickly, like the air had thinned. Inside the apartment, Emily had started watching me the way people watch a dog that no longer waits by the door. She noticed I had stopped asking where she was going when she picked up her phone. She noticed I no longer commented when the shower ran long after she said she was exhausted. She noticed I had begun folding only my own laundry. One evening, she stood in the kitchen and asked if we were okay. She did not accuse. She did not confess. She simply looked at me like she was measuring distance. I told her we were quiet. That weekend, she did not go downstairs. Instead, Ryan's door closed harder than usual below us. I heard it through the floor when I was sitting at the table. The building carried sound differently when you paid attention. At the salon, one of her coworkers came by our place to drop off a product Emily had forgotten. The woman mentioned, casually, that she had seen Emily getting coffee with the new neighbor more than once. She said it like gossip, not warning. Emily laughed it off and said they were just being friendly. I stood by the sink and dried my hands. After that, something shifted in the building. The older couple across the hall stopped chatting with Emily in the lobby. The woman from upstairs began greeting me first instead of both of us. No one said anything directly, but the air changed, and Emily started coming home earlier. Emily tried to reset the room without saying that was what she was doing. She started cooking again in the evenings, even though she used to say she was too drained to stand over a stove. She would ask what time I finished my route and text that dinner would be ready. When I walked in, the table was set the way it used to be, candles lit, music playing softly from her phone on the counter. I thanked her and ate. She reached across the table once and rested her hand over mine. Her touch felt careful, like she was checking if something was still there. I did not pull away, but I did not tighten my grip either. After dinner, she suggested we watch a movie in the bedroom. She leaned against me, her head on my shoulder. It had been months since she initiated anything. I stayed still, eyes on the screen, aware of every inch of space between us. Later that night, she did not go downstairs. The elevator stayed silent. The next morning, I saw Ryan in the parking lot. He was loading boxes into his car. Not many, just enough to look temporary. He glanced up when he heard my footsteps. There was a tightness in his face that had not been there before. He said he might be traveling for a while. He said freelance work gave him flexibility. I nodded and wished him safe travels. When I came home that evening, Emily was sitting on the edge of the bed, phone in her lap. Her eyes were red, but she had no makeup smudged. She said Ryan was leaving. She said it sounded sudden. I told her people with flexible schedules could disappear quickly. She studied my face like she was searching for anger, for accusation, for something to push against. There was none. That was the night she asked if we were just roommates now. I looked at her for a long moment before answering. She asked it quietly, like she was afraid of how the words would sound once they were out. She said she felt like we were just roommates now. She said she did not understand when things had shifted. She said she missed how we used to be. I told her that was what she had been practicing. The room went still after that. She stared at me as if I had spoken in a language she did not recognize. There was no yelling, no slammed doors, no accusations thrown across the bed. Just silence stretching between us. She asked what that meant. I told her that for months she had been too drained for touch, too tired for conversation, too busy for weekends. I said I simply adjusted to the schedule she set. She tried to say it had just been stress. She mentioned long days at the salon, difficult clients, the pressure of keeping everything running smoothly. She did not mention Ryan. I did not either. Instead, I stood up and walked to the closet. I pulled down a small duffel bag and placed it on the bed. I folded a few shirts into it carefully, the same way I folded them before early shifts. Her breathing changed. She asked where I was going. I told her I had found a place closer to the depot. I said it made sense with my schedule. I said I had already signed the lease. She said she thought we were working on things. She said she had cooked dinner. She said she had stayed home. I nodded. I told her that staying home after the building started watching was not the same as being present. She sat down hard on the edge of the mattress, phone slipping from her hand onto the comforter. I did not rush. I packed what I needed. I left the rest. When I walked out, she did not follow me into the hallway. The elevator sighed as it carried me down. The new place near the rail yard was smaller, quieter, and honest. The walls were bare, the kitchen plain, the windows facing a stretch of track that hummed in the mornings. I brought only what fit in 2 trips. Clothes. A coffee maker. The framed photo from before everything felt rehearsed. I did not block Emily's number. I did not send long explanations. I let the silence do its work. The first message from her came the next day. She asked if I had really moved out. She said the apartment felt strange. She said she had not expected it to happen like that. I read it during lunch at the depot and put the phone back in my pocket. A few days later, another message arrived. She said Ryan had officially moved out. She said his place downstairs was already listed for rent. She said she felt stupid for not seeing how temporary he was. I did not respond. By the end of the week, her tone changed. She said the neighbors were acting differently. She said the older couple across the hall barely spoke to her. She said someone in the lobby had made a comment about people forgetting what they had. I imagined her standing alone in that same lobby where she once laughed under string lights. I imagined the elevator doors opening and closing without anyone stepping in beside her. Another message came that night. She said she had been wrong. She said she thought she needed excitement, attention, something lighter than schedules and early mornings. She said she did not realize what she was trading away. I stared at the tracks outside my window as freight cars rolled by. For 6 months, she had said maybe this weekend. Now there was nothing left to postpone. I typed one sentence into our chat. Weekend finally came. Then I set the phone down and let the silence stretch. She came to see me a few days after that message. I was sitting at the small kitchen table in my new place, uniform folded over the back of a chair, when there was a knock at the door. I already knew it was her. No one else in that building had a reason to show up unannounced. When I opened the door, Emily looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically smaller, but stripped of the brightness she used to carry into every room. She was not dressed for attention. No sharp lipstick. No careful curls. Just a simple sweater and tired eyes. She stepped inside slowly, glancing at the bare walls, the single couch, the view of the tracks through the window. She said it felt quiet. She said she had not realized how loud the old apartment had been until she was alone in it. I did not offer excuses. I did not ask about Ryan. His name did not belong in this room. She told me the neighbor downstairs was gone for good. She said the building felt different now. She said people looked at her like they already knew the ending. She admitted she had confused attention with connection. She admitted she thought I would always be there, steady as the rails I drove every day. I listened without interrupting. When she finished, she asked if there was still a chance for us. She said she did not want to be the woman who traded something real for something temporary. She said she understood too late. I walked to the window and looked out at the tracks stretching forward, parallel, and disciplined. I told her I had not disappeared. I had just stopped showing up where I was not respected. I said if anything started again, it would not be on the old schedule. It would not be built on maybe this weekend. She nodded slowly, like she understood the weight of that. Outside, a train passed, steady and controlled. Inside, I did not reach for her. I simply stood there and let her decide if she could meet me where I now stood.